It happens in a heartbeat, a quiet room, a sunlit table, a glass resting near the edge, and then your cat appears with that calm, unreadable expression that feels almost ancient. One tap, and the glass tips, wobbles, falls, and breaks the silence on the floor. To you, it can feel like a challenge, a provocation, even a small act of rebellion wrapped in whiskers and soft paws. But what if that moment is not a message of defiance at all? What if, in your cat's world, it is something far more ordinary and far more reeling? Cats do not live inside our explanations. They live inside sensation, instinct, memory, and timing. The edge of a table is not just a boundary. It is a place of movement, reflection, sound, and possibility. A glass is not just an object. It is a mystery waiting to respond. And that is where the misunderstanding begins. From your side, you may see a pet testing limits, watching carefully, almost as if they know exactly what they are doing. From your cat's side, there may be curiosity first, boredom second, and a quiet hunger for interaction underneath both. Sometimes the paw reaches out not to destroy, but to discover. Sometimes the fall of an object creates the only real event in a long, uneventful animation. And sometimes, yes, the behavior is a kind of invitation, a way of saying, notice me, engage with me, give this room a little more life. This is the strange elegance of feline psychology. The same act can carry different meanings depending on who is watching. What feels like mischief to us may be communication, stimulation, or even a search for connection in a world we have made too still. If you have ever stood there, staring at the broken glass and wondering, why does my cat do this on purpose? You are not alone. And if this sounds familiar, stay with me, because once you begin to see the behavior through your cat's eyes, the whole story starts to change. From your side of the room, the scene feels almost insulting. A glass sits peacefully at the edge of the table. Your cat approaches with that slow, deliberate grace, pauses for a heartbeat, and then extends one careful paw. The sound is small, but the consequence is not. The glass tips, trembles, and falls as if gravity itself has been personally invited into the moment. You may see a creature who knows exactly what it is doing, a tiny rebel, a furry strategist, a little agent of chaos. But in your cat's mind, the story may be entirely different. To you, the falling glass is a mess. To your cat, it may be a question. What happens if I touch this? Will it move? Will it make a sound? Will you come closer? Sometimes what looks like defiance is simply the language of curiosity, spoken with a paw instead of words. Cats do not knock things over only because they want destruction. Often, they are testing the world, measuring it, learning its edges the way a philosopher might test the limits of truth. And then there is boredom, that quiet force we underestimate. A cat with too much stillness and too little challenge can begin to create its own theater. A dangling object becomes a target. A cup becomes a moving puzzle. In a house where nothing changes, even a small fall can feel like an event, not because your cat is bad, but because your cat is asking, in the only way it knows how, for life to respond. In another home, another moment, the same behavior might carry a different meaning altogether. Maybe your cat is hungry for connection. Maybe it has learned that when something crashes, you finally look up from your phone, finally speak, finally move toward it. In that instant, the object is not the attack. The fallen glass becomes a bridge, however clumsy, between your attention and your cat's need to be seen. That is what makes feline behavior so mysterious and so deeply human in its effect. We react to the event, while the cat is living the emotion behind it. We feel annoyance, maybe even betrayal. The cat may feel anticipation, restlessness, or the simple thrill of interaction. The same motion, two different worlds. And once you begin to see it that way, the question changes. Not, why is my cat doing this to me? But, what is my cat trying to say about its world? If that shift already feels a little truer, give this a little truer, give this a like, and stay with me. Because the real clues are hidden in when these moments happen, and what your cat's routine may be missing. From your side of the room, it can look almost insulting. A quiet afternoon, a glass resting safely near the edge, and then that familiar paw appears with slow, deliberate precision. Tap, pause, tap again. And suddenly the object falls, shattering the piece along with it. You may hear defiance in that moment. You may even feel targeted, as if your cat has chosen this one act to say, I know exactly what I'm doing. But from your cat's side of the world, the scene is entirely different. The table is not a place of rules. It is a landscape of textures, scents, reflections, and movement. The glass is not your glass. It is a strange, upright thing that catches light, shifts balance, and responds in a way that is deeply interesting to a hunter's mind. For a cat, the question is rarely, how can I annoy my human? More often it is, what happens if I touch this? That small question can carry the full force of feline curiosity. And then there is the deeper layer, the one we often miss in the noise of our own frustration. A cat that knocks things over may not be seeking destruction at all. It may be seeking attention, because attention is a powerful currency in a cat's world. Even a startled, hey, or perhaps the behavior arrives in a stretch of the day when the house feels too still, the mind too underused, the body ready for a game that never came. In that silence, a falling object becomes a spark, a reaction, a connection. This is where the Rashomon effect becomes so revealing. The same moment can hold two truths at once. You see inconvenience, waste, even disrespect. Your cat experiences stimulation, investigation, maybe a small invitation to interact. Neither perspective fully cancels the other, but together they create something greater than blame. They reveal a need hidden inside a behavior. If you pause long enough to watch the pattern, you may notice that the chaos has context. Does it happen when your cat is alone? When feeding time is delayed? When the room has become dull and predictable? These details matter. They turn a mystery into a message. And if this is starting to sound familiar, take a second to like the video so more people can see this from a different angle. Because once you begin to understand the language behind the knock, the story changes. You stop asking only how to stop the behavior and start asking what your cat has been trying to say all along. From the outside, it looks almost theatrical. A cat on the counter, one paw extended, eyes fixed on a glass as if the object has offended him personally. Then comes the tap, light as a whisper, and the sudden fall. To us, it can feel deliberate, even disrespectful. But in the quiet logic of a cat, the scene often begins long before the glass ever moves. It begins in boredom, in tension, in a room that has stopped offering answers. A cat does not wake up thinking, how can I make my human angry today? He wakes up in a body built for stalking, pouncing, testing, and reacting. When that energy has nowhere to go, the nearest object becomes part of the conversation. The glass is not just a glass, it is movement, it is sound, it is kind. And for a creature who lives by instinct, that is enough to make it interesting. Imagine the moment from the cat's side. The table is a territory map. The room is full of clues. The human is distracted, moving slowly, speaking in a language that means very little to a hunting mind. The cat reaches out, not always to destroy, but to distract. What happens if I touch this? He seems to ask. Will you look at me? Will you move? Will the world ant me? Will the world answer back? Sometimes the answer comes in the form of laughter, sometimes frustration, sometimes a sharp voice. Either way, the cat has learned that the act matters. That is where the misunderstanding begins. What feels like defiance to us may be a plea in disguise. A cat that knocks things over repeatedly may be asking for stimulation, for interaction, for a space that feels alive enough to meet him where he is. In a home with little novelty, even a falling object can become a substitute for play. In a home where attention is scarce, trouble can become a form of communication. And yet there is another layer, quieter and more intimate. Some cats knock things over when they feel unseen, when routines have become too thin, when the day has too little texture. The behavior is not always about mischief. Sometimes it is about reclaiming presence. Notice me, the action seems to say. I am here. My world is too small. If this sounds familiar, take a moment and observe without judgment. When does it happen? Before meals? When you are on the phone? When the house is silent? These small details matter more than the broken object itself. They are the outline of a story your cat has been telling all along. And if this perspective is helping you see your cat more clearly, give this video a like so more people can understand the mind behind the behavior. Because once you begin to read the pattern, the chaos starts to speak. And what it says may change the way you live together. It usually starts in silence. Your cat is standing beside the table, not rushed, not chaotic, just alert with that almost unsettling stillness that makes the moment feel intentional. One tap. A second later, gravity does the rest. And in that instant, the human mind often fills in the blank with a story. He knew exactly what he was doing. But from your cat's side of the room, the story may be very different. Maybe the glass moved because movement itself matters. Maybe the sound was the reward. Maybe the table was not a place of disrespect, but a stage of curiosity. A cat does not divide the world into my things and your things the way people do. For a cat, the edge of the table is a border, an invitation, a mystery. What appears to be defiance can also be a question. What happens if I do this? Will you come closer? Will the room change? Will something finally break the monotony? And sometimes that is exactly the point. A cat that knocks things over may not be trying to destroy, but to participate, to engage, to get a response from the one being who matters most. Because even negative attention can feel like connection when the day has been too quiet, the environment too predictable, the hours too empty. The falling object becomes a message, and the message is not always anger. Sometimes it is hunger for interaction in the only language that worked. Still, not every glass on the floor means boredom alone. Some cats are driven by instinct. A dangling corner, a wobbling spoon, a precarious object near the edge can awaken the hunter in them. The part that tracks movement and tests balance. The part that says the world is made to be explored with pause. In that light, the behavior is not random. It is deeply feline. A small reenactment of control in a world that is otherwise controlled by us. If you watch closely, the context begins to speak. Does it happen when your cat is alone too long? Right before dinner? After a day of no play, no challenge? The answer may not excuse the behavior, but it can explain it. An explanation is the first step toward peace. Sometimes understanding your cat is less about stopping the falling objects and more about hearing the need behind them. If that idea makes you see your cat a little differently, give this bit and tell me, what behavior from your cat has made you pause and wonder? What is really going on in that little mind? If you want to keep uncovering the hidden language of feline behavior, stay with me, because there is even more beneath the surface. By now, the moment no longer looks so simple. What once seemed like a cat deciding, with almost theatrical certainty, to destroy your peace, now feels more like a message written in a language we were never taught to read. A paw on the table, a glass tipping, a stare that seems almost too calm. And behind it all, a small life asking to be understood. Maybe that is the real turning point. Not when the cat stops knocking things over, but when we stop seeing the behavior as a betrayal. Because in that pause, just before the object falls, there is often a story already unfolding. Too much energy and too little outlet, a restless mind searching for stimulation, a body needing motion, a heart asking for interaction. Sometimes it is curiosity. Sometimes it is boredom. Sometimes it is your cat's indirect way of saying, "No, notice me. Include me." I am here. And when you begin to see it this way, the room itself changes. The edge of the table is no longer just a place for fragile things. It becomes part of a living environment, one that can either frustrate a cat's instincts or give them healthier places to land. A toy placed at the right moment, a window perch with movement outside, a consistent routine, a few minutes of focused play that feels, to your cat, like a real conversation. These are not grand solutions, but they often speak louder than punishment ever could. There is something humbling in that. We want our homes to be orderly, our lives predictable, our pets obedient. But cats live closer to instinct, closer to appetite, closer to the hidden logic of emotion. To live with them is to accept that communication may arrive as motion, mischief, or silence. And once you understand that, the bond deepens. Frustration gives way to curiosity. Conflict begins to soften into empathy. If this helped you see your cat in a new light, give the video a quiet like. And I'd love to hear from you. What is the biggest challenge you face with your cat? Your story may be the beginning of someone else understanding. And if you want to keep exploring the secret world behind feline behavior, subscribe, because there is still much more to discover.